There was a point yesterday where, and it wasn't a point, it was most of the day. If you looked at the list of trending topics on Twitter, it was NFL names all day long, from Drew Brees to Aaron Rodgers and others. And it was Drew Brees that by virtue of something that was said yesterday, and we're going to play the sound for you coming up, that has created an avalanche of criticism of him from many in the National Football League, from beyond the National Football League. That is one of the things that needs to be discussed, presented, and dealt with. And it was yesterday morning on Instagram that Brees posted this message. There's a saying in every locker room that I have been in: don't just talk about it, be about it. Acknowledge the problem and accept the fact that we all have a responsibility to make it better. Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Nothing wrong with that. Great. Appropriate for the moment. And the moment that we've arrived at, and I think this really puts in context why there was such a strong reaction. The moment we've arrived at, for many people, is an honest assessment of their own views of what Colin Kaepernick did 4 years ago, and almost an epiphany where anyone who was against what Kaepernick was doing and his method of communicating his message, that has fallen away, and people are saying, boy, if we'd only listened to Colin Kaepernick, how much of what has happened would have been avoided? How many lives that were ended and that were permanently affected by the loss of a loved one or a close friend? How many of those lives would not have been lost if we'd merely taken what he was saying 4 years ago seriously? And his message was that he was trying to bring awareness to the treatment of African Americans and people of color by law enforcement. That was the message. So that's what I think set the stage for that very visceral, very raw, and very overwhelming reaction to the comments from Drew Brees when he was appearing on Yahoo Finance. Daniel Roberts asked about how Drew will respond if, given events that have happened recently, players decide to take a knee during the National Anthem in the 2020 season. Here is what Drew Brees had to say.
I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II, one in the Army and one in the Marine Corps, both risking their lives to protect our country and to try to make our country and this world a better place. So every time I stand with my hand over my heart, looking at that flag and singing the national anthem, that's what I think about. And in many cases, it brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movements of the 60s, and everyone and all that has been endured by so many people up until this point. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not. We still have a long way to go. But I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is it shows unity. It shows that we are all in this together, we can all do better, and that we are all part of the solution.
That's Drew Brees with his own personal experience as to what the flag means to him. And he's entitled to his opinion, right? We're all entitled to our opinions. The problem is at a time like this, when you articulate an opinion that is not going to mesh with what some regard as the overwhelming mood, which is, hey, we should have listened to Kaepernick. Hey, it was never about disrespecting the flag. Hey, why are you still saying it was about disrespecting the flag now once we know what we know and why we are discussing what we are discussing? I saw someone point out, well, Drew didn't say anything differently today than he said 4 years ago. Okay, he didn't. That's fine. But 4 years ago was a very different time and a very different mood and a very different place. And even then, look, I was never a big fan of this whole ignoring what Colin Kaepernick is saying and dismissing it by saying, don't disrespect the flag, don't disrespect the military, when he's saying that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring I'm using the platform I have to bring attention to a problem that is very serious and is very personal to me, and I feel strongly about it. So, look, here's the bottom line. What Drew Brees said yesterday, and I'm sure he had no idea the fuse he was lighting, And I know when I saw the comments, I thought there's a chance that this is going to become a problem for him throughout the course of the day. Well, it immediately became one. Because in this age of social media where we all have the opportunity to broadcast our opinions, our views, our reactions, whenever we want to and however we want to, the reaction will be there when the emotions are raw. Michael Thomas, Saints receiver, it was more subtweeting than anything else, as the kids call it, Chris, but he came after Drew Brees. It's unmistakable. He don't know no better. One of the tweets from Michael Thomas yesterday in the immediate aftermath of the Brees comments. And then we don't care if you don't agree and whoever else, how about that? And again, it all comes back to the idea that in this moment, in this time, it's not about disrespecting the flag. And I think if the season were to start today, there may be more guys taking a knee than there are guys standing, frankly, if the season were to start today. Now, who knows where we're going to be 3 months from now? But right now, in the aftermath of what happened to George Floyd and what's gone on over the past week and a half, the unity would be in the kneeling, not in the standing, Chris. So that was just a taste of how it all got started. Drew Brees then provided some information to Mike Triplett of ESPN.com, some clarification, some additional information. I love and respect my teammates, and I stand right there with them in regards to fighting for racial equality and justice. I also stand with my grandfathers who risked their lives for this country and countless other military men and women who do it on a daily basis. And look, he's trying to harmonize his views with the views of teammates and others. But look, it didn't work. It didn't take. As the day went on. The Malcolm Jenkins reaction was powerful, to say the least, Chris. And here, let me tell you what happened. And for anybody out there who wasn't paying attention yesterday, there was a very raw, very emotional video that was posted by Malcolm Jenkins, who plays for the Saints. Posted it. It was very, very, as I said, raw and emotional and personally directed to Drew Brees and what he said. That video was deleted. It was replaced by another one that was recorded before Malcolm Jenkins had a conversation with Drew Brees, but he explained on Instagram that he had the conversation with Brees, but he still wanted to post the video. As I was trying to muster up the energy and find the words to address Drew Brees' comments, I recorded this video before I could post it. Drew reached out to me to discuss his point of view. All in all, I'm still posting this video because it's important for anyone who wants to consider themselves an ally to know how these words and actions affect those who you want to help. Drew's words during his interview were extremely painful to hear, and I hope he rectifies them with real actions. That was the setup. Now, before I play the video, Chris, and I'm sorry, look, this is not an easy day. I'm trying to get the information out there, but I want us to have a conversation. As it relates to the Drew Brees comments that were made and the reaction, look, it is what it is. I mean, that's the thing. It happened. There's nothing we can really say other than it happened. And I understand why it happened, because in this moment, to go back and relitigate whether or not Colin Kaepernick was sending a message or disrespecting the flag, this isn't the time for that. This is the time for saying, hey, Colin Kaepernick was right, folks, and maybe we should have listened to him.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's really what infuriated me and other players in the NFL about Drew Brees' comment. We didn't make any progress over the last 4 years because the subject, when Colin Kaepernick had brought it up, got changed to kneeling to the flag and disrespecting our country and the military, which couldn't have been more false. So that's the first reason players are mad, because it's basically Drew Brees has given the propaganda to the other side, the racists of the world again, to sit there and change the subject because they don't want to deal with the reality of what is going on right now. So I think that is the biggest issue, and then when you go on this, tirade about what the flag means to you and you don't want to disrespect the country and you're more passionate about that and the anti-kneeling aspect, and yet you don't talk about a guy who kneels on a guy's throat for 9 minutes and kills him, of course that's going to piss off African-American players in the NFL. So that's where it comes off as insensitive to Drew Brees. Listen, I don't think Drew Brees is a bad guy. I really don't. I think he's a really good guy. Do I think he can be a little political in his answers at time and be that way? Yes. And I think that's kind of what got him in trouble yesterday. I do. But I think that's ultimately why he's getting the backlash he's getting. And it's why, I'm disappointed and other players are disappointed because we've moved past that. It's over. If we didn't change the subject to, oh, we don't like the country and don't like the military, maybe we would have had more progress over the last 4 years and we wouldn't be sitting here with, again, 3 or 4 African Americans who have unjustly been murdered over the last, month and a half or whatever it may be now, as far as the time frame's concerned, and maybe we'd be farther down the road in progress here. But I think that's the biggest issue at hand. I know that's what bothered me. And I think it's really upset the African-American athlete who, of course, has been in the trenches and trying to, make the world better and fight the good fight as far as this subject is concerned. And, they feel like this brings them back a little bit. It's like taking 2 steps back in this conversation.
Yeah, and the conversation on this point will continue. I think now is the appropriate time to share with you the second video that was created by Malcolm Jenkins. Again, it was created before he spoke to Drew Brees, but he decided, Jenkins did, to post the video following his conversation with Drew Brees. Here is what Malcolm Jenkins ultimately posted as his second video on social media.
Yeah, I promise you this, the onslaught of that we have to deal with is crazy right now. Drew Brees, if you don't understand how hurtful, how insensitive your comments are, you are part of the problem. To think that because your grandfathers served in this country and you have a great respect for the flag, that everybody else should have the same ideals and thoughts that you do is ridiculous. And it shows that you don't know history. Because when our grandfathers fought for this country and served, and they came back, they didn't come back to a hero's welcome. They came back and got attacked for wearing their uniforms. They came back to racism, to complete violence. And then here we are in 2020 with the whole country on fire. Everybody witnessing a black man dying being murdered at the hands of the police just in cold blood for everybody to see. The whole country's on fire. And the first thing that you do is criticize one's peaceful protest. That was years ago when we were trying to signal a sign for help and signal for our allies and our white brothers and sisters, the people we consider to be friends, to get involved. It was ignored. And here we are now with the world on fire, and you still continue to first criticize how we peacefully protest because it doesn't fit in what you do and your beliefs, without ever acknowledging that the fact that a man was murdered at the hands of police in front of us all, and that it has been continuing for centuries, that the same brothers that you break the huddle down with before every single game, the same guys that you bleed with and go on to battle with every single day, go home to communities that have been decimated. Drew, unfortunately, you're somebody who doesn't understand their privilege. You don't understand the potential that you have to actually be an advocate for the people that you call brothers. You don't understand the history and why people like me, people with my skin color, whose grandfathers fought for this country, who served, and I still protested against that, not against the national anthem, but against what was happening in America and what the fabric of this country is for, or stands for. If you don't understand that other people experience something totally different than you, then when you talk about being the brotherhood and all this other it's just lip service, or it's only on the field. Because when we step off this field and I take my helmet off and I'm a black man walking around America and I'm telling you I'm dealing with these things, I'm telling you my communities are dealing with these things, and your response to me is, don't talk about that here. This is not the place. Drew, where is the place, Drew? I'm disappointed. I'm hurt because while the world tells you that you're not worthy, that your life doesn't matter, the last place you want to hear from are the guys that you go to war with and that you consider to be allies and to be your friends. Even though we're teammates, I can't let this slide.
That's Malcolm Jenkins, more than 4 minutes. It was posted yesterday, and it is raw. It is emotional. He becomes choked up on multiple occasions, sharing his own experience. And I think that's the key, Chris. And I think for those of us who haven't lived it, now is the time to find out what others have dealt with. The people that we know. And you witnessed it as a teammate in locker rooms, both at Texas and with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and other NFL teams. So you have been around guys who have been the victims of anything but equality. But I think we all, to the extent that we interact with, that we work with, that we know, that we are friends with, if we have family members who have that experience, the point is, you know, we kind of go about our lives and we're numb to it. We're blind to it. We don't live it. We don't know what it is. Now's the time to really take a step back and find out what people have been dealing with when they have been on the wrong side of the majority, when they have been on the wrong side of law enforcement, when they have been the victims of systemic and specific discrimination, Chris.
Yeah, well, it's been going on in our society for way too long. And, you know, as I've talked about before, I thought I had a pretty good idea growing up as Phil Simms' son, being around African-American athletes and people. And, oh, well, I kind of know what they're going through. Absolutely not. You can't until you spend significant amount of time and get into certain places or get around law enforcement to start to realize, whoa, they do treat you a little differently sometimes when your skin's a different color and all those issues. So Malcolm Jenkins has been, one of the biggest advocates in this fight altogether. He's very smart. He's well thought out. He's passionate. And I'm sure he didn't like calling out Drew Brees there and doing that. I don't think he wanted to do that. But when you're the face of, advancement for the African-American community in America, and Malcolm Jenkins is one of those faces for the NFL, he can't let a teammate slide with that type of comment because this is bigger than football. This is life, and a guy like Drew Brees can really sway some minds and sway the way people think. And Malcolm Jenkins and other guys that are in this fight with him would look very hypocritical if they didn't call out Drew Brees because he was just their teammate or a guy that was really good at playing quarterback in the NFL. So not easy to do. Again, I want to make this clear. I don't think Drew Brees is a bad person. I don't. Do I think he's maybe a hair self-righteous and his thoughts are a little mixed up? Yes, I do, definitely. But I think what Malcolm Jenkins said was very powerful and really spot on in a lot of ways.
Well, and let's remember this. Malcolm Jenkins has been at the forefront of the effort to effect change in the 4 years since Colin Kaepernick tried to get our attention. So, look, just like there are two Americas, there were two American reactions to what Colin Kaepernick did. There were those out there who decided to ignore his message because they didn't like his method. We don't like his method, so we're going to plug our ears to his message. Then there were those like Malcolm Jenkins who took the message to heart and used it as a way to spur action, which is what makes the fact that Jenkins is now back on the Saints after 6 years with the Eagles even more relevant and impactful to the discussion that emerges in the aftermath of what Drew Brees had to say. Jenkins has the authority. He's got the time invested. He's got the experience invested.
Exactly.
He's got his soul invested in trying to end these problems. And he's been very effective, along with the Players Coalition, in making things better. And I think that from his perspective, when we immediately rewind to 2016 and use the same deflections that were employed to ignore the message, that feels like taking the work that he's done over the last 4 years, crumpling it up into a ball and throwing it into the trash can, which I think is why he reacted as emotionally as he did. One of the reasons why. Many reasons, I think, behind the very emotional reaction. But let's not go back to 2016. It's not 2016. Circumstances have changed, and I think the prevailing reaction in America is, or at least should be, man, we should have paid more attention to what Colin Kaepernick was trying to tell us.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.